Perfectionism doesn't exist. When someone comes to me and they already feel this about themselves, that they're a perfectionist, as gently as I can, I remind them that that's not possible. And in coaching with me, we will be looking at where you have had successes, because in those successes, I guarantee something wasn't perfect from the beginning. It was in you staying in it and working it that it became successful. Right? Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm Vicky. This is Intuition, your success compass. I appreciate you being here. We are talking about taking a break from self-help. And I wonder if you've ever considered, if you are someone who has been anywhere on their self-awareness journey, you know the feeling of getting addicted to understanding who you are, figuring out who you are, embracing who you are. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can get tired of me, and I can get tired of that process of delving deep all the time. And I've seen enough in 23 years of this business where people will go really hard in the self-help department of the local bookstore or Audible or any of those other methods, weekend retreats and everything, which, listen, I'm in the world of it. I get it. I appreciate it. But there can be a place and there can be issues with doing too much of it. So I decided I wanted to talk about that and encourage you and everyone who's listening to install some breaks, take some breaks, to give yourself the permission, if necessary, the awareness of it, that sometimes you just gotta coast. It's okay to coast, because even though you think you're coasting, all of that information and all of that stuff that you put in may be catching up, right? It could be. So I want to talk about some of the signs that you may be overdoing the self-help thing. And I have my paper in front of me and a list of them, but I just thought of one I didn't put on the paper. And it's an example from my own life. I had said to Mike, my partner, not too long ago, I have got to read some fiction. I have been reading nonfiction for so long, and self-help books and coaching books and business books and science books and everything, that I have just got to go somewhere in my own head into a story to defrag some of this computer stuff that's going on and all the information that I was putting in. So I'm going to add that to the list. We're going to move it right to the front since it just popped in. I believe Spirit does that to me to say, oh yeah, and here's this. So maybe you could look at your shelf and see what you've been reading, or maybe it's on your Kindle or something of that nature. And have you been really heavy in that world, and it's time for you to take a little break, read something playful, read something fun. I don't know what this says about me, but the cop mysteries, the murder things, yeah, the gorier, I can handle it. In reading, I cannot listen to it and I cannot watch it. But in reading, I feel like I can temper what's being offered to me. And that's a great way of decompressing and taking a break. So go taking a little inventory of what books you've been reading, what podcasts you've been following. Thank you for following this one. I appreciate. Go ahead, subscribe, hit that little bell thing. And like, what have you been putting in? Because maybe you need a little bit of decompression, and that is a good indication of kind of overdoing it. So here are some other things that I've collected as what I've seen when, people hire me or come to me for coaching. They've most of the time already been along their process of figuring out who they are. And maybe they've reached a place where they could use the encouragement, some systems, some pushing a little bit at times, some goal setting. And that's where I come in. But they've certainly done some work. You're not hiring an intuitive coach or intuitive business coach if you haven't already delved into your own knowing and your own wiring, which I love. I love. I have had some people come to me, but usually for the individual sessions, who are not sure what it is. And then that's usually how we get them in the door for coaching. So, what's one of the signs that you may be overdoing it in the self help world? Excessive self analysis, looking at your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors constantly. I'm not saying in the observational place of, oh, I could have said that differently, or geez, Vic, why did you eat the whole thing of oat ice cream? Have you tried the oat milk ice cream? Don't do it. Like that kind of stuff is good. That's being present, that's awareness. But if you're constantly overthinking or analyzing what you said or your thoughts or your emotions, and you don't ever give yourself a break or give your brain a break, that's an unhealthy level of self focus. And I'm not talking about the narcissist or anything like that. I'm talking about, I want to be so good. I want to be better. I want to understand myself. I'm going to analyze everything. You're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to fry your motherboard. So, overthinking and constantly seeking a self improvement or the indicators of self improvement without giving yourself permission, to experience life, to be in life, to screw it up sometimes, to not know. Previous episode about not knowing, it's a powerful amplifier to self awareness and to spiritual enlightenment. It really is. So, overthinking, seeking self improvement, gotta improve, gotta improve, gotta improve. You may need a break. You may need to take some time and invest in something fun, playful, because if not, it leads to the next thing, which is a tendency to self criticize at a really high level, but also believe in perfectionism. And perfectionism doesn't exist. When someone comes to me and they already feel this about themselves, that they're a perfectionist, as gently as I can, I remind them that that's not possible. And in coaching with me, we will be looking at where you have had successes, because in those successes, I guarantee something wasn't perfect from the beginning. It was in you staying in it and working it that it became successful. Right? So, some of you may have had parents that led them to believe that they had to be perfect, or they at least had to look perfect to the outside world. Or maybe you've been in a relationship where that was stress. I'm here to say it's not possible. And the preoccupation with self-help can lead to never-ending pursuit of perfection. And there's even this slightly insidious messaging in self-help sometimes about, well, you just need this course. I know you've done all that before, but you just need this. Or you've tried the rest, now try the best. Anybody markets that, like, get the hell out. But there's somewhat of a push, I feel like, for people to achieve your best self or be your best self. Not possible. What's this best thing? It's not possible to be our best self. We can be our mostly good self. We can be our I totally freaking rock that self. And we can be the I'm accepting that this is who I am self. That would be a fantastic place to live from. But perfection is not going to be there. And anyone who's suggesting this will make you your best self, it's clickbait. It's not true, because our imperfections are exactly what makes us beautiful. It makes us interesting. How boring would that be? It robotic even. So if you find you're setting like impossibly high standards and constantly feeling inadequate, you may need a break from some self-help pursuits. You may need a therapist. This is a good time to tell you I'm not a therapist. I am certified life coach and intuitive. Well, I'm not certified in the intuition. That just came from spirit. Can't find a piece of paper on that. But I'm not a therapist. So take what resonates, use it. The success track record is there. But if it doesn't, that's okay. I appreciate you spending time with me. So in this pursuit of perfection and being best self, I have seen people neglect the relationships in their life. The saddest one is they neglect the relationship with themselves, because they're trying to create, maybe not consciously, but they're trying to create this version of themselves that, maybe social media gave them, or that parent that was tough, or a partnership that they unfortunately are in. And relationship with self will get neglected, which is some irony here, isn't it? Often we go and we pursue things of self help because we want to know who we are and we want to expand that knowledge of who we are. And yet, if we don't retain a bit of independence, critical thinking, even, it can be too easy to be pulled in. And then you may end up neglecting other relationships in your life because I have to be perfect. I have to become the energy equivalent of the partner that I want to bring into my life. Well, I agree with that, but not to the exclusion of going out with friends, of taking a class, of going for a hike by yourself, neglecting relationships and social interactions. If there's not a community there, that's a self-focus issue. And it's something that may be unintentional, but still needs to be rectified, because it's through the relationships in our lives that we can grow. And it's through learning how to communicate and expanding and spending quality time with people we love, and engaging in kickball team. I did that one time. That is harder than it. That ball hurts more now than it did in fifth grade, I promise you. And it can also lead to feelings of isolation and disconnection. I had a friend one time who told me that she was going to be single the rest of her life. Fine. That's her choice. She was a consenting adult, because that's how she would reach the highest level of enlightenment. And I said, I don't agree. I don't agree. And all respect to those who choose a life of isolation and being their own company and sitting on a mountainside and meditating for 6 hours a day. Good for you. But we are here physical, my friend. And being in a relationship will elevate your awareness of how this whole world works and your connection to both of your divinity, your divine love that's within you, and then the love that's possible in the world. So there can be a mindset of solo journey being one of the most connected. And I just do not agree with that. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine. One of the things that I find happens is people become so invested in their growth that they end up not only avoiding other relationships, but, maybe avoiding the tasks that are need to be done, or they are not making the phone calls, or elevating their career because they're looking at, well, from a self-help place, from an evolutionary place, from an enlightenment place, it shouldn't be about ego and greed. Well, no, it shouldn't be about greed, but that ego is a pretty amazing being you have within you. And if that ego is compelling you to take a class, to expand your knowledge, to further your career, listen to that. Listen to that. And I find that people will avoid things that would have absolutely lit them up, felt so good, because they thought they had to keep their nose to the grindstone. Hello, American messaging. And put off those other things. I'll do it after. I'll do it after I know more about myself. I'll do it after enlightenment. Well, after enlightenment is croaking. So before enlightenment is croaking, that chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. There's a reason for that statement. If you're putting off living, you're not practicing self-help there. You're avoiding it. And the cycle of procrastination and avoidance, because you're constantly in the idea of self-help material or courses, and then you're not taking action in your own life. There cannot be expansion, self-knowledge without action. In the compass model, right? We have the north is our soul guiding us, giving us information, showing us how amazing we are. We have the south, that's our physical self, that's helping us to get there. The West is giving you information from your past and your wiring and everything, but that East is about action. And there is not a level of awareness that doesn't come with some kind of action. So if you find that you're procrastinating and you're avoiding, it might be time to put it down and attend to the fundamental things in life. I have had some pretty fascinating awarenesses doing laundry, doing the dishes, weeding the lawn. Weeding the lawn? I don't weed my lawn. Weeding the garden, mowing the lawn, taking the dog for a walk. Because our brain, when we pause, opens up this little gate on your crown chakra, and it just allows the information to come through your throat chakra where your intuition comes in. So it can be intoxicating to get that next book. And as soon as you get in the algorithm of self-help, well, that's probably how you found me. As soon as you get in there, there's so much that's available, and it can feel like a drug of some sort because you want that endorphin rush because this next thing is going to promise. Well, it's just like anything else. That next thing can only promise as much as you're willing to move your arse to do it. So if you find yourself in the procrastination or avoidance, I'm going to ask you to pause, take a break, look around, get grounded in your life, and start living, start participating. I promise you, you will become aware of yourself if you're living. You will just be present, which is a lot harder than it sounds. So, one of the other things that happens quite often in this is people become too serious. They become too practical, too focused on things that just reduce enjoyment and that feeling of fulfillment that in essence is what they're seeking, right? Like you're looking for that feeling of feeling full, knowing who self is and taking that deep breath and feeling content and joyful in your life. And sometimes people will show up with this list of things that they want to do in an hour's time and they must get to. And in 2 months, I want to be in this place. And I'm like, whoa, not the coach for that. If you want a whip cracker or if you want someone who's going to push you through to self-awareness and enlightenment, I am not your gal. Because if we don't laugh in a session, I just don't know if I'm doing my job. Because humor, human, like we need to lighten up. We need to be playful. So think about how you approach your idea of what expansion is for you. What is it that you would like to learn about yourself? Have an idea, but do not create a checklist. I'm okay if it's a to-do list. If you're going to celebrate the things on that list, go for it. But have them be opportunities for growth, for genuine engagement, and that promote rest, relaxation, goofiness, rejuvenation, playfulness, because it can really happen where you become so focused. And I've seen people do this, like I said, that just become so focused on what seems to be the end result and not live in the now and not actually enjoy, that dog they see coming towards them or the recipe they made now. It's it's nice to have an idea of where you're headed, but it can be restrictive. And I've seen people do this, and I just don't want that to happen to you. I've seen people pursue the idea of meditation with such rigidness and then say, well, I can't stand meditation. It's not something I would ever do. Well, I wonder why. Because when you're in that state of got to get this right, I have to expand, I have to learn all of this stuff. You can't be in ease and flow that meditation requires because it's not about having absolutely no thoughts. It is about having an awareness of your thoughts and allowing them to flow through. Okay. So while self help often emphasizes the idea of quiet and meditation, if you're too focused on that end result, whatever that is, because I don't that yet, you're not going to enjoy life or give your brain a break. And speaking of break, this would be a good place for one. So I can tell you about the bundles I have for sale. So, are you ready to invest in yourself and level up your personal, professional, and spiritual life? Yeah, I thought so. That's why I created empowering worksheet bundles. Right now, there are 4 and more that you can take advantage of over at the shop. One is overcoming anxiety, or at least quiet down a little bit, define your client avatar, getting to know me, and achieving work success. I created these empowering worksheets so you can learn practical techniques to understand your anxiety, to shift it, to define your ideal client, to understand, gain clarity on your strengths and your goals, and to achieve success in all areas of your life. And whatever success means to you, you'll have the tools you need to get started. And then you can build on that with the other bundles that are in the collection at vickibaird.com. So welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it. The idea that we would continue to grow and evolve is hardwired into us. It's why we're upright. It's why we develop and expand our knowledge of the body, of science, of intellectual pursuits, of emotional wiring. It's why we figure out what didn't go well in the garden last year, change it up, do something different in the garden this year. It's why all of a sudden we get the urge to take a class or to change up the workout routine. It's built into us to seek, to grow, to expand. So if you can have an appreciation for that, and you can also have an awareness that that is within you, you will relax and take it with you. Everything has an opportunity of learning, of expanding. And it doesn't have to be an intensive weekend, although if that works for you, go for it. It doesn't have to be sign up for this course, one right after the other, right after the other. And listen, hey, I have done it. I have bought those courses, signed up for them. I encourage you to buy the bundles that I just announced, but I encourage you to be in flow with that, because if not, you can get too dependent on external guidance. You can become too addicted to seeking advice, to looking for validation, for answers from others. I released a couple clients just this year. Was it just this year? Yeah, in 23, because there was a dependency on my intuition. And I know, irony, right? I'm here. You can hire me as the intuitive. And yet, when it starts to tip and someone becomes somewhat addicted to me being their north instead of their soul being their north, and we've tried different ways, and I've encouraged self-reliance and belief in themselves and develop their own intuition, acknowledging their growth, but also saying, I am not here to live your life for you. That would be very disrespectful of me to say, I know everything you need to do. Besides, I can't follow you around and make you do it anyway. I have released people and just not renewed their contract because it was becoming unbalanced. And if I'm in my own integrity, I have to be willing to give up the income and give up the joy of working with them, because I really like these people. But in coaching, just like in therapy or in training or, a doctor-patient relationship, it can lean intimate relationship. It can become too dependent, and that's not healthy. And it's not saying, I believe in you. Now, do you believe in you? And there's only so much your coach can do. There really is. And that took me a long time to get, because I have other clients that have been with me for quite a long time, and the progress is there. It's micro movements matter. It may not be leaps and bounds, but they also don't hand their power over to me. They hold on to it. So one of the challenges, and I see this in the self-help world. I'll see people who I've even followed and like their content, and then all of a sudden there's this little shift, and it may not be so obvious, but you can start to feel the guru-ness in them. And you can start to feel those that were working with them, understanding that we are equal partnerships in your expansion. Well, not equal. I'm helpful, but you have to do the work. You can see it shift. And that's always sad to me to see someone who really, I believe, had the most beautiful intentions to begin. And then maybe they have too much pressure from their publisher, or they feel like they have to produce. Bigger is not always better. And then they become too full of themselves. And then they start attracting those to them that actually do want a guru and want to hand over the power. I love when people appreciate working with me. Of course I do. I'm human. That helps me in my growth. But there can be an overdependence on external guidance when there's a fixation on self-help. And it ends up being a lack of trust in one's own judgment and a lack of understanding, but also trust again in one's intuition. So that will prevent one from becoming self-sure and having a sense of like a personal autonomy, right? I am my own blessed being. You are your own blessed being, and we are in this own blessed universe. And you can, when that codependency shows up, it's not pretty. And it's even less appetizing to me when it shows up and someone being the person who's guiding has taken on the role and wanted people to be almost subservient. So be mindful of it. And if you are in, circles, you're in book clubs, you have a friend or, partner, sister, brother, being, kids, grandkids who are embarking on this conscious journey of knowing self. If you start to see that, ask them, well, what do you believe about yourself? Who do you believe yourself to be? Because every one of you has an intelligence already in there. And those of us that are in this profession should just be the ones that are kind of nudging it out of you, encouraging you to know where it is so that you can then enhance it and you can appreciate it. So I've said self-help probably about 100 times in this episode, but the self is what I really want to focus on. Yourself as your expert, yourself as your soul and your knowing and your brilliance, and yourself as the one who has to have responsibility for what you're getting yourself into, what you're signing up for, what you're learning, and for taking those fun breaks, for going for a walk that's not a mindful meditation, for having a girls' weekend where everything is just about hanging out and giggling and connecting and maybe some shopping. Not really the gal who's going to do that, but I hear people like it. So that can be some of the most expansive, some of the most helpful things you ever engage in. Okay. So please don't buy into the message that you're so broken that you have to keep pursuing this idea of perfection or what the other person is showing or we think they're showing, the whole Instagram world thing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. If you have someone that you think this would be helpful for, hit that little share thing or send a link if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or Google, or it goes out to all the platforms. And thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate that the storms held off. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to vickibaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.